Hello, everyone. In today's video, we will be talking about seller forms. We will be dividing it into a couple of parts because the forms are, they do need a little discussion and they are a little longer. So we will go over their clauses and different kind of forms. There are certain forms which are common, whether you're working with buyers or whether you're working with sellers. We will go over those forms as well, and then we will dig into the sellers forms in which we use in our brokerage. Remember, we are a common law brokerage, so we will be discussing about common law forms and how to fill them, especially in sellers cases. When we proceed here, the first slide I'm going to show you is major forms mostly used in a seller's transaction. CRG, the consumer relationship form, the Fintrac, the money laundering ID forms, and then for sellers specifically, we will be looking into certain other documents from them like land title, RPR, and some other like DAVA. And then we will be talking about, in our part 2, we will be talking about the exclusive seller representation agreement. How to do any amendments, price changes, extensions, and all those kind of things. And lastly, the trade record sheet. As always suggested, it's a very good practice for any realtor to print these forms, download them from web forms, and print them and go over them, try to understand them before you actually go and meet your prospects. It's a very good business practice. It will keep you in line. And if you ever have any issues or there's any portion of the form which you don't understand, you can always call ahead and get the answers. So you look very well prepared when you go and meet your prospects. So let's start and dig into this, and we'll go with CRG first, the Consumer Relationship Guide. So when you meet your clients for the first time, they are still not your clients actually at this point in time, the prospects. You will be giving them and explaining them the Consumer Relationship Guide, a very straightforward 2-page form here, which you should present in the beginning, right when you meet the first time. It's a very easy form to explain. It's almost like a guide, like it says. It explains that in the normal transaction, what kind of relationship in a real estate can be developed between an agent and the sellers. This is a common form between sellers and buyers, so please make sure you learn how to present it, and you also understand this form. You can have your own style to present it. A very essential form to present will keep you out of a lot of trouble later on in the transaction if the clients you're going to work with understand what kind of relationships can be developed between you and them, what can happen in a transaction, who represents who, and what are your responsibilities and what are their responsibilities. Just explain it to them, get the signature and the name on the second page, the last section there, and make sure you put a date on it. And this date should be the date when you first met them, which technically would be the beginning of the process, so an earlier date than any other form. That's the date this form will have. The next form is a Fintrac ID. Now, this is not a real estate form, but it is going to be used in our real estate industry as well. This is a federal requirement, federal law for money laundering and terrorist transaction activities. This form is an identification form. Most of the time, your clients will be individuals, but there might be cases when your clients are corporations or companies or some other forms. So mostly you will be using the individual identification information form. The corporation form is also available on the web forms where this form is downloaded from. Both kind of forms, whichever is appropriate, you will fill. This form does not require any signatures from the consumers, from the sellers, from the buyers. But this form does need their identification. So starting from the top, if you look at it, transaction property address, you will put down which property address is going to be used in this transaction, which house you're listing, your name, and the date information was collected and verified. Pieces of IDs which can be used are stated on the form, and they are very easy to use. Driver's license is pretty common to be used. Something which can be verified. Make sure it is not expired, it is still valid. Most of the stuff can be taken down from the driver's license, date of birth, address, legal name. Just verify with them if it is the correct address. That address does not have to be same as the transaction property address. In some cases, they might be selling a different property than where they live. But type of identification document which you have taken, it's printed right there. What can you take as that? If you're taking driver's license, for example, passport or something like that, the identifier number, issuing jurisdiction, country, and document expiry date. So make sure it's not expiring or already expired. If those kind of IDs are not available easily, and if you have to do a credit check, then A2, and A3 in conjunction are used to verify. If you're not using any photo ID or a normal ID process is not available, most of the time A1 is good enough, and you will be able to fill it. Now, the law requires that this form should be filled at least in front of the clients when you take the ID. The meaning being that you are not going to ask them stuff over the phone. You've never met them, and you're just taking down their information, or asking them to text you or email you some IDs, and then you start filling them. The whole essence here is to make sure that you know who you are working with. But in certain cases, if you know the people, but at the time of the transaction, at the time of filling this, maybe they might not be with you. They might be in a different city or maybe even out of country. So in those cases, we can use, there's another form called the Identification Mandatory Agent Agreement form, which is on the right side of your screen. Now, this becomes a double-stepped process. Basically, your clients, wherever they are, they will have to assign a person who's going to ID them at that point. So that person and you, not your clients, but that person who has been appointed, that person and you have to agree on a form, which is this agreement form, where you, as a real estate brokerage and the identification agent on the other side will have to agree on certain things, making sure we would suggest that that identification agent at least be commissioner of oath or notary public or a lawyer. Someone who can be verified, not just another public member. This is a must thing. So you want to make sure whoever is IDing them is IDing them properly, and can be contacted later on if there is any case. You will also have to provide them the identification forms, which you would fill here. You can fax them, email them to that agent, and that agent can fill it and then provide it back to you. If they have their own forms and stuff which they are easy or comfortable filling, they can fill those forms and supply them to you as well, as long as all the fields as per your information record are present and available on those forms which they are using. The whole idea of identifying your clients, working with them, is to make sure that you don't have a bad feeling about them. They are going to use this money. The source of the money is not money laundering. They are not transferring money from overseas and all those things which was not supposed to. And also, like page 3 and 4 of this form asks you simple questions about how do you feel about your clients. Are they citizens of Canada? What is their risk factor? Those are your assumptions or your comfort zones, which you will fill. The client does not have to fill any portion of this form, so it's up to you to report. Usually there is not much of an issue, but if you have been following news lately, Alberta and BC has been showing up on the names quite a bit, where money laundering and this kind of funding has been happening. Real estate is expensive, is a big ticket item, and moving money in real estate is easy for certain people. So money laundering can happen, drug related or terrorist funding related and all those kind of things. So pay special attention to Fintrac ID. Once you have taken the IDs, the good thing about that is you also now know who you're working with. Because if someone wants to sell their house and they are saying they are Mr. and Mrs. Sellers, then at least their IDs are there and you can verify that yes, it is Mr. and Mrs. Sellers. So one verification has been done. And then later on in the process, when you will start filling certain other forms and asking for more documents from them, at that time, you won't have to ask for IDs again and again to verify certain other things. For example, land title and stuff, which we will be going to next. Land title, first of all, you should be aware of land title. What is a land title? In Alberta, land title basically is a form, is a certificate issued by the registries, the Alberta Land Title Ministries, and this one has certain information on it related to the land, the mines and minerals, and the ownership, and whoever has any interest in that particular property. So all those things are put and combined together on a land title. So having a land title, asking for a land title, obtaining a land title, all these things are very, very essential when you are going to be listing a property and when you have decided to work with a seller. As you can see on the screen, there are some circles here. Every land title has a link number on top, a unique number which is given to and assigned to that particular property and put it on the land title certificate. It's more or less like probably a certificate number. And then you have, which is essential, is legal description. Now, this legal description is the surveyor's description of that property which you are trying to sell. And that property can have its own municipal address as well. For example, 123 Anywhere Street, or for this example here on your screen, it's I think 14 Red Deer Crescent in Edmonton. So that's the municipal address, but the legal description is the lot, block, and plan according to the survey and the way the lot has been cut from a block and a plan. And that is what the legal description is. So we need to check both these legal description and municipality address to make sure you are listing the correct property. The ownership is correct, and people are trying to sell what they are saying they are trying to sell. So here, the owner's names is also written. So now you can verify it again that these are the actual owners, the ones who gave you the IDs for Fintrac and you collected the IDs. So everything seems genuine. Proceeding further, you will see other registrations on land title. Almost every land title will have few registrations. Not to worry about it, these are interest in lands. Now there are certain things, certain abbreviations which are used. You should get familiar with those. For example, caveat, liens, all those kind of things. Those are the registrations on it. In land title language, sometimes they are called instruments as well. And these registrations are registered to the Land Title, Alberta Land Title Office against the property. Some of them are really, really plain, simple. For example, right-of-ways, there might be a pipeline or there might be gas pipelines and stuff like that going from under your lot or that particular lot which you're trying to list, and they might have the utility right-of-ways and all those kind of things. Something assigned and registered on the title. Sometimes if you will notice, if you're getting a new house build, certain areas will have some sort of specific architectural controls. They can also be registered on it. So something very simple, not to be worried about. Most of the time, the mortgage will be registered on this as well. If you can look on your screen on the right page, page 2, you will see the way it is registered. There is a registration number and the date it was registered in the second column, the middle column, and the third column is the particulars, which gives you a little bit of detail. You might be able to read, it's from Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, CIBC, and it's a mortgage, or you can verify if it is a line of credit or something like that. It's always against the property, and that's the interest in the property of that bank for whatever amount. In this particular case, there is no amount written, but it's not very uncommon to have an amount there as well. There could be other liens which you should be worried about sometimes, most of the times actually. What I would suggest is, like, it is good to know all these kind of things and to how to read land title and stuff. Practice. If you have your own land title, go over it, see what all is registered, try to Google things and find out so that you understand. But the idea here is to find generic problems here in the land title when you have agreed to list a property, but try not to become a land title expert. It's not your job to be a lawyer, or not your job to be a land title expert. You start making mistakes by assuming certain things and conveying those messages or information to the seller, and you can get into trouble. For example, saying, oh, it's only a caveat, nothing big, and maybe it is. So don't try to become a lawyer. Try to have that information, but always suggest the sellers, if there is anything which you find is not easily explainable or you are confused about it, always you can call Alberta Land Title. They will help you out. You can take suggestion of lawyers. You can ask sellers to get a lawyer involved and find out what that particular thing is. When you go to list a property, you can ask the sellers. You should ask the sellers first of all for a land title. Now, it might be old. Let's say if they have been living in that house for 10-15 years. So sometimes some of the instruments or the registrations on the land title might have already been fulfilled or paid off, but just because they have been living here for that long, no one took the effort to go to land titles and get those registrations or instruments removed. No need to panic. So once you give them a call, they might do it, or if a lawyer looks at it, he might give them a call and find out from for your sellers if that caveat or that lien or whatever the registered instrument is still valid or not. So, like I said, one, you have to understand that why do we need a land title. So identifying the clients, it's very essential. In certain economic times when properties were selling left, right, and center for no reason, there were some for sale by owners trying to sell the property, and then they were actually not even the owners of that property, and then the buyers got sucked into those things. They thought they were getting a deal, so they paid huge amount of deposits, and the people vanished with their deposits. So all these kind of things, when you go into them, you can explain it to your sellers too, and then it also verifies the municipal and legal address. It has been in very few instances, but like duplexes and condos and stuff like that, that a wrong property has been listed on an MLS for sale with a small little error. So make sure municipality and legal address is verified here. Plus, again, you can verify registrations on the title. I'll take you back to that screen and I'll explain you one more thing. If you look at the link number on top of the Alberta Land Title Register certificate on page 1 on the left side, the matrix MLS system, which puts the property on the listing on MLS, when you are filling it, you do get an option to put a link number there. And if you put the correct link number, the legal description, municipality address, and few other things are automatically filled for you in the MLS. So if you have the land title with you and you are trying to put the listing on MLS, it becomes very easy for you to look at the link number, put it in, and it auto-populates, so those kind of things. So it's always better to have it. We will also discuss a little further, but I will mention that topic here as a DAVA issue. If your land title, if you look at the ownership names and you don't find more than one name, if there is only one name on the land title, usually there should always be more than one. But if you find one name on the land title, then you might have to take further steps to find out if there are any DAVA issues. We will go over this in a little bit here, the next slide. And where to find the land title? Your very first question should be from the sellers. You should be able to grab one copy of land title from your sellers. But like I said, it could be old. They might have lived there for long, or it might have already had some changes on it, which you are not aware of. So having a current land title is very essential. It does cost you probably 10, 15 bucks depending upon, but you can download it directly from the SPIN, Government of Alberta's website. You probably will need municipal address or legal description or link number anyhow. So if the seller gives you an old land title, good enough, proceed with the process here, but pull the current land title. So when you go on that website, the name is written here, www.spin.gov.ab.ca. You can pull the land title from there. And it's also our office policy here that you should always have the current land title whenever you're listing a property. It's a very good practice to do it for your buyers as well, because there are a lot of things which you can find out for yourself or the process to go smoothly. For example, the DAVA issue, which we suggested before. And you can also get the land title from the registries. So those are the sources where you can get them. Let's go to the next topic here, the real property report, which is also a very essential document to have about that property. It's also sometimes called survey report, in short, RPR. RPR, although sounds very simple, gets avoided most of the time in the seller's transaction. It should not be. It is one of the simplest things to get, and if it is not obtained and if it is not current and compliant, it can stall the whole real estate transaction. It can even lead to lawsuits and stuff like that further down the road. So what is an RPR? A real property report is a legal document, I'm just reading it, that illustrates the location of the improvements done to the property boundaries and the property itself. So it does not bother about what is inside the property. It is more of a surveyor's, like when you survey the property from outside. It can identify encroachments, it can identify easements or restrictive covenants, right of way. For example, when on a land title, if you see a registered utility right of way, then it would be shown on the RPR where that utility right of way is going from, where that utility is going from. It could show any municipal bylaws, compliance issues, problems to the property boundaries and stuff. I'll give you an analogy. Try to look at the property from an aerial view. So if you're looking at the property from the top down, what you see basically goes on the survey report with the measurements on it. If you have done any changes to the house, added something, removed something, changed something, every time anything outside related to the property is done, you will have to update the RPR for every single change. So you can suggest your sellers that they should have an updated RPR at the time of the listing with them, and it should be compliant with the municipal bylaws. Otherwise, it will pose hindrance in your real estate transaction. It is very common for the clients to turn around and say, what is RPR? I have no idea what RPR is. But the lawyers or the builders who they got the house from when they bought it, or from other sources, they must have been provided with a land title which shows that the property has been transferred to their name and the RPR at that time. If they have done any changes and stuff, they will be able to tell you since the time they moved, they have done it. So just suggest them that you have to get the RPR updated and a compliant stamp put by the municipality to make sure this process goes further. In your seller's agreement, when you make an agreement with them, which is also called listing agreement, there is a section which they will have to sign saying that yes, they will provide an RPR and land title. But do not leave it up to them. It will never get done. Right from day one, before you even put it on MLS, you start pushing them to get the latest RPR updated. I will show you what it looks like. Alberta Land Surveyor's Real Property Report, also called survey report sometimes. If you look on this screen, you will see that red line area, that red outlined is for this particular lot. It gives you the legal description there in a circle, lot 22, block 6, and plan 712, right about here, if you can look at this. It will also be mentioned here on the right side. So you can make sure this real property report is the one which you are trying to sell as the on land title. And here is the municipality address as well. So you can verify this. And this land surveyor's report will also show you if there whatever issues are there, and they will be marked on here. For example, here, the steps on this side. This is the house. The steps on the side, it says number 1 here and G. So if you look here, they have specified 1 and G, and it will be here also 1 and G. G is right here. That the steps and concrete landing, number 1 is saying that it encroaches into the lot 23. So this is the lot, adjacent lot is lot 23, it is encroaching there. And G verifies that it's an encroachment on the adjacent property. And what is encroaching? It's the steps and the concrete landing. So this is the landing and there are steps. So these kind of issues can stop this real estate transaction. You know, if this owner of this property says, please move your steps back. Now, how are you going to move them? How are the seller going to move them? It's not going to be an easy job. Maybe it is. It's encroaching by 0.10 meter, almost 10 centimeters. So that's like, you know, almost 3.5, 4 inches. If this fence was going into the city property or into this property, you know, or if you had removed the steps, or if you have added more concrete on the wood ramp or deck or something on the side. So those need to be addressed. And if there is any issue on it, you will have to solve that issue. Only then you take it to the municipality, for example, City of Calgary, and they will put a compliant stamp on it. This is not a compliant stamp. This is showing the survey company name, which ABC survey company is the one which did this. This is their stamp. Similar stamp would be put by the municipality saying that, yes, this lot block plan is compliant with municipality. There's no encroachments, or if there were, they have been fixed. If this RPR is not updated and not compliant, you will have issues closing this transaction on the day of possession day. No one will get paid. There could be lawsuits coming left, right, and center. So please make sure the land title and RPR have been obtained by you when listing the properties. They are current, and RPR is with the municipality compliant. It is seller's job to provide it to you, but like I said, if you leave it to them, they will never. It will never get done. So keep pushing it, even up to the point if you think there is no issues at all. You know, you can just tell them that go to City of Calgary and get a new compliance stamp, and only then I will list it on MLS. So no harm in saying that as well. But these 2 documents should be there, and we require you to send these documents to us as well whenever you're listing property. The current land title and compliant RPR report. Fintrac IDs and CRG, they are all part of this. Like I said again, don't try to become a surveyor or an engineer, and do not try to become one. There would be issues. The survey companies and their engineers are the correct people to get in touch with. They will always, on an RPR, they don't have to, the sellers don't have to go back to the same company, but they can always call these people and say, hey, you did the survey for this property, there were these issues. Can you suggest what they are? And can you give us the details how to get it fixed? And they might also, that engineering company might also help you to get the compliance done. So you can relate this information to the sellers, but do not try to become an engineer yourself. Small little things, don't try to dig a hole for yourself. And then comes the DAVA. Now this is another issue which is very simple, but I find in my experience most of the realtors try to make it more complicated than it should be. Most of the time the reason they make it complicated is because, like RPR and land title, they try to become a problem solver or a lawyer for their own clients. Try not to get sentimentally attached to these kind of things. These are legal issues which have to be solved by your client. Don't try to solve it for them being a nice guy or a girl and trying to solve it for them by suggesting them certain things. You will always get into trouble. DAVA is a simple thing. It's a form of protection for a spouse who's not on the title of the property. So when you looked at the land title, and if you see only one name on the land title for the owner, ask that person that is DAVA going to be an issue here. If it is a rental property or if it is an investment property, it's very common to have one person name on it. That is fine. But if it is a principal residence and there's only one name on it, and when you're talking to the clients and you find that they are married or they are divorced or they do have certain other kind of relationships, then you will have to verify from them that is DAVA an issue. And the reason DAVA was introduced in early 1917, I guess, or so, is because of the disposition of the property. And disposition means anything, like even remortgaging the land, or changing the mortgage company, or selling the land, or buying the land. In all those cases, DAVA can be an issue. The reason, like I said here on the screen, is DAVA is to protect the spouse who probably for some reason is not on the land title. Not always the spouse cannot be on the land title for some malicious reasons. There are some valid reasons too. Sometimes a person doesn't get a mortgage on two spouses' name with some sort of credit issues, so they decide to have one person on the name. But that does not take the spouse's interest in that property. So whenever that property needs to be remortgaged or sold, the other spouse has to give a consent saying that yes, they are aware this property is being remortgaged or sold. And that is the time when you're listing the property. If you look at the land title and you see there is only one name, so this is the step. You can follow this step, and don't try to confuse yourself more than this. Don't try to come up with those vague scenarios. Oh, this is the relationship. I have seen that the law society, the judges, the judicial system, and then other systems have taken care of things. Just because your seller is telling you one story doesn't mean that they fully understand the whole thing. So DAVA, you understand why DAVA is an issue is because there's only one person on this land title. So number one, all you have to do is verify title is in one person's name. That means DAVA might be an issue. Ask the seller if the property is co-owned or is it just owned by a single person. That person was never married, has never been married, so no issues there, right? Or if they turn around and tell you that yes, I was married or I am married, but this is the reason why this person's name is not on the title. So we have a form on web forms called the DAVA form, and also a section in your listing agreement which will address to that form. So when you ask that why is one person on the land title and you get an appropriate answer, then you go to number two, that the person on the title is married. So the DAVA Act only applies if the person is actually married. Few changes have been done in the law. So common law relationships do not have the same protection. So again, try not to become a lawyer at this instance. If there is a complicated issue, please tell them to get a DAVA form signed or get a lawyer involved, right? So number three is a judgment call where you can ask a few more questions saying DAVA requires that either person has lived in the property. So there is more than one person living on the property as a spouse or relationship, but only one name on the title, so DAVA is an issue. So this is the key step. The key parts are that either of the two married people lived in the property, right? And people often think that there are no DAVA rights because only one person lived there. That is not the case. You have to understand that. So consider one of the person, for example, having slept overnight in the property, and that now in legal language means that they have lived there. So these are the things. DAVA form is very simple form. You look at this form. This is available. It's just a one-page form, and you don't have to fill too many fields. This is the form. You just find out if the DAVA could be an issue, and if the seller says yes, it could be, then you just provide them as a service this form and tell them to get it filled in front of a commissioner of oath or a notary public or a lawyer. You know, you can provide, you should provide actually an agreement number on top, excuse me, which is the same as your listing agreement. You know, and so keep these forms. You can fill the municipal address on this so that you know, this form is not used for wrong other reasons for some other property by someone else. And the rest of the field should be filled in front of the officiating officer, you know, the one who's going to verify this. So don't fill it for them. I've seen this, like as a service, people go ahead and fill this thing. No. I'll give you an example. Like even if they go in front of, as a husband and wife or a spouse, if they go in front of the lawyer, and the lawyer will send one person out of the office to take the consent of the other spouse. You know, so that is the process in a way that there should be no conflicts here. So don't fill it for them, because otherwise they will need another form, blank form, to be filled. The lawyers or the notary publics might have their own forms, which is fine, but most of the time I've seen clients feel at ease when you provide them this form, and it is available on the web forms. Very easy form to fill, and you provide it to them. So these are few of the documents which we have seen, which become essential part, you know, the CRG, the Consumer Relationship Guide, you know, and then the Fintrac ID forms properly filled and verified against the land title, RPR, and the DAVA form if you find out there is any issue on the form. So once you have all these things taken care of, then it becomes easy for you to start filling the listing agreement and making them aware of the process which is going to be performed. Those forms we will be sharing in the next our presentation, the part 2 for the seller forms. So far, this is it. Please make sure these forms are filled completely, properly, and at the proper time.